You found yourself at the junction where worlds meet. Politics.
Civility? How about honesty in this country, folks?
Entertainment.
I don't like entertainment.
And a whole bunch of other stuff.
It's about having a healthy body image. You have a very unhealthy body. You should have a horrible body image.
Not a big home improvement market in Detroit.
We are definitely going to get letters.
You're listening to Talk Radio's Strangest Animal.
You're a strange animal, that's what I know.
You're getting louder with Crowder.
But you're a strange animal, I got to follow. Oh, I'm in the spiritus.
Glad to be with you. That sound means the sound of the weekend. Great show coming here with us. I didn't introduce you.
You didn't
Don't
yet.
insult the show right off
Not
the bat
yet.
before you're introduced. I am your host, Stephen Crowder. Producing with me in video studio, live stream you can watch online if you're listening terrestrially, is Not Gay Jared. He is not gay. Follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. I fulfilled my legal obligations. Draw your own conclusions. We're good?
We're okay. Yeah, it's good enough. It'll have to be good enough.
You don't look so pale now that you've gotten over the AIDS.
Got the AIDS out.
A little bit.
Just flush it out.
Tweet me at S. Crowder what you think. I think his cheeks look a little more rosy. A little like
more
there's-
color?
His hemoglobin levels are
Yeah, it
coming
turns
back
out
to-
it wasn't a white balance. It just turns out I had no blood
you
in
were
me.
very, very sick.
I was very sick.
Not Gay Jared was a very ill boy. We have great guests this evening. We have
Great guests.
Ben Shapiro.
Average guests. Below average guests on the show.
What?
It's going to be a great show.
Don't say that.
I would never say
You
that.
can insult me. Don't insult our guests.
Okay.
Ben Shapiro. Paul Joseph Watson of Prison Planet, and Courtney Kirchhoff. She works, of course, she's the best writer over there at louderwithcrowder.com, and she wrote a column that went viral. Dear Hollywood, stop gaying all the things.
It's a valid point.
It is a valid point, and it's a good column that she wrote. So we have a lot to get to today. Let me just go right off the bat, because I don't want to spend all night with this. Donald Trump announced his Supreme Court nominees list. And I will say this, listen, looking at the list right off the bat, looked pretty good. I'm not going to lie like hosts and go, oh, yeah, I know all of these people. I didn't. I had to cross-reference them. And I haven't looked at all of them, but from what I've looked at, looked pretty good.
What are the chances Trump knows all the people, though? That's my question.
I don't think most people know all the people.
Probably not.
But, my whole thing, you got to give credit where it's due. We were saying, let's see what a list of Supreme Court justices look like. That's at the very least, there's someone smart with him saying, this is probably what you should propose.
That's a lot of what George W. did, though. I mean, he's a guy who surrounded himself with brilliant people that could kind of help him along in areas. I mean, nobody's an expert at anything, even the President of the United States. So,
No, I think you're right. It's
Credit
valid.
due.
Yeah. So, and we'll talk with that. We'll talk about that with Ben Shapiro later, and we'll talk about it with Paul Joseph Watson. Listen, before I get started, and we have a lot to get to today. I don't know how we'll cram it all into the show. Something that I really want to know. And I think we talked about this when the radio show first started, but Not Gay Jared was not with us. I've still not had a definitive answer. We'll get a poll up on Twitter. Who do you think would win in a fight? Grizzly bear or male silverback gorilla? Now, gorilla. I implore you, do not answer right off the bat, knee-jerk, because almost everybody changes their mind. Almost everybody who goes, well, no question, gorilla, at some point finds themselves in doubt. If I were a multimillionaire, that's what I would do with my. People say, what would you do if you had to kind of, retire right now money? I'd roll the dice with PETA, and I would have grizzly bear versus male silverback gorilla. That is what I want to see.
It's a valid point. I've never thought about this before.
Don't answer it yet.
I'm not going to answer.
We'll get up the poll. We'll see. I know people go, one has thumbs, one is smarter, but they're not inherently super aggressive. Grizzly bears have claws. I've heard all of the arguments, but I've not been convinced. And this has been going on in the Crowder household for a very long time. Speaking of grizzly bears and big things, Blake Lively. Blake Lively got into a lot of... So we're going to talk about a few things as it relates to the social justice stuff right now. One of them was at Everyday Feminist, one of the biggest feminist blogs. They wrote that rationalization is not a good thing. It is inherently a tool to oppress women. We no longer need rational arguments, and you needn't listen to rational arguments. Salon.com trotted out pedophiles, again, for the third time. An active pedophile who we found and debunked.
At what point did they add the tab on their little thing of, health, men's, pedophilia?
Pedophilia, yeah.
Just a little tab.
It's a genre. It's a lifestyle blog. They put it right next to yachting.
That go dark places right there.
So pedophilia right there, and rationalization is a tool of the patriarchy. Pedophilia.
I have
on
news about
Salon.com.
that, by the way.
And
I
Karl
have
Marx. And Karl Marx. We released a video on Karl Marx. All the Bernie people who were so offended that we conflated, as they said, democratic socialism with communism, they're the ones responsible for this Karl Marx video being popular. Look at the comments. It's all Bernie voters. Karl Marx praised, Bernie Sanders praised bread lines that Karl Marx loved. So we want to get into the macro. We'll dig into all of that here. It's just so. Okay, let's go to Blake Lively. You can bring up the screen here, not gay Jared. Blake Lively under a lot of flack because she put on Instagram, LA face with an Oakland booty. And she has a rather large posterior. I believe she's pregnant or she was pregnant. So she has a large posterior. She said Oakland booty. You can look at all the responses, the tweets.
Is that the same thing as ghetto booty now? Is that kind of the same idea there? Because I'm not as familiar with it.
Another day, another rich white woman using WOC's bodies as a punchline and commodity, as if Blake Lively wasn't the worst already. So much privilege, even the GOOP feels uncomfortable. I don't know if that's a term like goop instead of GOP, or this is just a typo. At this point, who's to tell?
No one.
They're beyond parody. So everyone's all upset because she said Oakland booty, because they deem this to be offensive. Listen, okay, let me explain why it's not offensive. I understand some people think that this may be based on some kind of a stereotype. The reason Blake Lively said Oakland booty is because she has clearly a large posterior here. As a general rule, black women have larger butts and or legs than white women. Oakland is comprised of mainly black people. Heavily black population.
I'm making the connection.
Hence, Oakland booty, like I have a butt like a black person. So for those of people who thought it was offensive based on a stereotype, it's easily explained.
I can you back up. You have a butt like a black person?
I've been told ghetto booty.
This is a well-known fact, and can confirm. By this glamour shot, this is an outtake or an intake of pants, more so. Let's get a closer.
What
look.
is this?
Closer look here. It gets better.
That's enough. That's enough. Stop that. You're fired naturally, but it was worth it.
It was worth it.
For you. Yeah, I have been told to have a ghetto booty multiple times. If you look at the Planet Fitness video when I was in tights, people going, oh, you got a ghetto booty. Namely black people.
And
I have a large posterior.
And a very hungry
one. Well, that's the problem. When you have a large posterior, it's hard to purchase pants that don't find themselves amidst the Grand Canyon. It is a problem. It's a problem for people with large posteriors. So everyone is getting offended about this now. All up in arms. They want to boycott Blake Lively. First off, it's a compliment. Everyone sings about giant fat asses now. Beyonce goes up and shakes her giant fat ass, and everyone talks about what is it hate speech if you're harmonizing to "I like big butts" in your car? Is that cultural appropriation?
Can you harmonize to that? That's the bigger question.
Everyone likes big butts now. I'm still of the belief that I like moderately sized butts that are in good health. You know, now the standards, the doors have just been blown wide open. Anyone. You look at Twitter whenever it's one of those trends, like ghetto booty was trending one time. It's just, you just look and people are like, I got a butt like J-Lo. No. J-Lo is in phenomenal shape with probably 12% body fat and she has a large posterior. You're 300 pounds. Salsa is something she'll put on, not a gordita. It's part of her native dance. It's not something you put on a double crunch cheesy gordita. Difference. That being said, Blake Lively seems quite lovely. I think she was rated the most attractive woman in the United States. People magazine. Right next to the Obamas. You can't all make the top of the list, but she did pretty well. She had a good showing. And she has a large posterior. Shouldn't people who are advocates of body pride be happy that someone out there who is considered so beautiful has a large rump? Instead, you're worried about racism. This is where we are. And
she should be celebrated.
She should be celebrated.
She should be.
People should not be descending upon her Oakland booty with anger. They should be descending upon her booty with love.
Animals, these social justice warriors.
You fix that because you know that someone's going to say, you savage animals. What are you trying to say? Social justice warriors. Or it's racist. Maybe he's racist. Take your pick. I don't care anymore. That's the whole thing. When you accuse everybody of racism, when you accuse Blake Lively of racism because she said Oakland booty, which, by the way, I'm quite certain she was quoting a rap song. Again, we had that this week. Daryl of Hall & Oates. Remember, someone asked him about cultural appropriation, and he said, well, this is music I grew up with. Well, it's really stupid to say that what I'm doing is racist. I grew up and I've been singing this music my whole life. Give you a story about that. I wrote about this. This is a true story. When I really got into Hall & Oates, was a cab driver in Houston. I was doing a stand-up gig. He was taking me to the Greyhound bus station. I had no money. That is how I know I've made it. No more Greyhound buses for me. The AIDS lasts forever with the Greyhound bus. That's the problem. It's one of those souvenirs you take with you. However, I remember I walked into his cab, and I was wearing a blue shirt and glasses, and he said, "Man, if I'd have known I was picking up Clark Kent, I would have gotten ready." Something like he was laughing. I laughed. To a lot of black people, big white guy in blue glasses looks like Clark Kent. I've gotten it 6 times from black people. He was playing Hall & Oates. And I'm going, "Oh, you know what? I didn't realize this was it." He goes, "Yeah, man, they want to," you hit him, you go, "Man, that's Hall & Oates. A lot of the songs are Hall & Oates." He goes, "I remember I heard them the first time. I said, man, these guys they got soul." And this one told me they were 2 white boys. I said, they're 2 white Hall & Oates, but I don't even care. I seen them twice. They're my favorite Hall & Oates. And he was sitting there talking about it. And I thought, isn't that great? Isn't that beautiful? Art bridges that divide. Now, not self-important art, right? Not self-important art where it's, like Piss Christ or someone drinking a vial of their own blood out of some orifice, which actually won a prize. Actual art that people enjoy brings people together. You should be able to hear it. You should be able to look away, like The Voice. Look away, not even know who's singing. Do you like it or not? Oh, they're white or black. Who cares? And people were mad at Hall & Oates. Again, Salon strikes again. People are mad at someone like Blake Lively. Oh my gosh, we have to go to a break. I really wanted to get in Elena Dunham and Amy Schumer. I don't think we have time.
Time for that.
Viacom might try to shut down
nor
our
the first penis transplant, which happened this week.
That's true. That happened this week. First penis transplant ever. I know what you're thinking has nothing to do with the trans issue. The guy had penile cancer. I didn't even know existed. I know testicular cancer, prostate cancer. Penile seems quite general.
Yeah, it turns out it's an organ that can be transplanted like all the rest.
Does penile mean shaft? Does it mean glands? Does
No
it mean
one
frenulum?
knows.
Nobody knows. Maybe tweet me at @SCrowder, and we'll figure that out. First penis transplant. We didn't write about it on the site, but we have to talk about it on the show.
Of course.
Then we have Ben Shapiro, Paul Joseph Watson. I want to talk more about feminism and racism, and I want to spew some really horrific, racist, anti-woman stuff because that's how we do. Stay tuned.
Everybody was kung fu fighting. Those kids were fast as lightning. In fact, it was a little bit frightening. But they fought with expert timing.
Hey, Steven, what are you doing?
I'm just browsing AR15.com.
You mean the site about the scary black rifle with the best prices, community, and information on the web?
Oh, what the hell's the difference?
AR15.com! Kaboo! AR15.com! Kaboo! AR15.com! Kaboo!
You know, they just heard the 3 takes. You did 3 takes. You didn't edit it. They can hear you.
Kaboo!
Welcome to Cool News. News with a super cool approach. I am your host, Phil Cool. This week, a man named Thomas Manning was the first successful recipient of a penis transplant. Damn it, P-Ray. I told you, man, I don't want you to give me no fake copy. Ain't nobody gonna believe this story is true with some dude in a fake penis transplant, man.
It's true.
Man, I told you stop messing with me, man. I gotta read the news, and people coming to me because they trust me with their information, and you don't writing about dicks and transplants. Hey, give me some real copy.
It's true.
P-Ray, give me some real copy, man. I ain't gonna say it again, P-Ray. You gonna give me some real copy?
No.
Hey, P-Ray! What's in this drink? Hello, we're back. Grateful to be here.
Hello, world.
People watching the live stream know what's happening. So, we are glad to be back. Ben Shapiro coming up after this next break. Gosh, there's so much to talk about. It's hard sometimes when you do a once-a-week show. This was up at Everyday Feminism. 3 reasons it's irrational. You can bring this up, Jared. To demand rationalism in social justice activism. So let me read you a quote. What if those imperialism-driven Europeans, all passionate and roused about manifest destiny, were encouraged to stop and consider whether their violent plans were rational? What is my mouth right now? I like that guy from Fat Albert, Mushmouth. Here is an actual headline from a feminist site. Let me highlight this for you. Being rational has no inherent value. They actually wrote that. Being rational has no inherent. Rationalism is a tool made to hurt us. Okay. All right. We have enough of that.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Rationalism, if I were to say that feminists believe logic is a tool of the patriarchy to oppress women, people would say you're building up a straw man to knock it down, right? That's what they would say. There's no way anyone is that stupid. Here, they wrote it. If I were to say that feminists believe that being rational has no inherent value, they would say you're simply, you're misrepresenting their argument. There is no way. No, it is absolutely right in front of me. Being rational has no inherent value. The crux of this from feminists, and this is important for those of you out there, where everyone just talks about news of the week that'll come and go. This is an ideology that is being sprung upon your children, young minds who are told that if they question it, it's patriarchy and they're sexist. The crux of this argument from feminists is that if you look at any great revolution, you look at people who ended slavery, what if they were rational? What about when we got women the right to vote? What if they were rational? There's no point in being rational at that point. It's time to just get it done. Here's the thing. Slavery existed in the world throughout always, and still does in a significant portion of the world. The United States, I'm trying to think of how many signers with slavery. Basically, very wealthy people, 50-something. 56?
I don't recall.
We're talking about slavery specifically.
Wouldn't want to lie.
People had to sit there and rationalize. They had to rationalize a moral argument as to why slavery was reprehensible. Everyone did slavery because that's just what you did. You have people like Nietzsche. Everyone loves to talk about how brilliant he is, and Karl Marx and these intellectuals. He basically said slavery is okay. It's a natural human condition to have a slave, and a master, a slaver. And these are people who they teach in college. They teach you Karl Marx. They teach you Nietzsche. I never pronounce it correctly, like Mizzou. And they don't teach you Adam Smith. And they don't teach you Hayek. People had to sit down and say, okay, slavery is wrong. Here is why it's wrong. And then they were willing to risk their lives for it. People had to sit down and say, okay, voting rights, civil rights, this is important. This is why this matters. People had to sit down and say, oh, you know what? Islamic oppression is wrong. Here's why it's wrong. The basis of every single notable revolution is rationalization, is logic. The moral argument stems from a logical one. So the idea that, we're just gonna go ape crap crazy. I mean, feminists like to do it, as seen by the slam poetry on Super Mario Brothers,
Lord.
Which we'll get to.
Dear God.
The crux of this entire thing is wrong, so you can read through the entire thing and, of course, take out... But the whole piece is wrong. It's based on the idea that slavery was not ended through any kind of a rational process.
Now, this is not to put down your point, because this, blog today will be tomorrow's main news,
Yes.
HuffPo. We know this. But I did some research. I didn't read all the piece because I searched how many times white supremacist shows up in it and was past my threshold of 1. But this is your author right here. This fellow. This guy.
It was written by a guy?
This guy.
That's
Native American. No, it gets worse. This is the LinkedIn profile of the author.
Oh, no. Oh, he's a tranny.
This is your Facebook profile.
Oh, my God. Oh.
So, college students, self-professing.
And these people are teaching your children across the board. They have them in elementary school now where they're forcing kids to read about little boys in dresses. And, of course, Obama, he's going to cut federal funding. That was something that happened since the last program happened a little earlier in the week. Barack Obama says that the protected class, kids who are likely to be bullied, the most vulnerable, are little trannies. By the way, here's something else, too. Little orphan tranny. Here's something, too.
It was like the same, class of little troopers.
Yeah, little troopers. Little trannies. Here's something, too. There are no little transgenders. They don't exist. They do not exist, little transsexuals. None of them have gone through a sex change operation. Not a one. Not a single one. They can't. So we've changed from transsexual. There used to be transsexuals and transvestites. What did that mean? Transsexual. You go through a sex change operation. Now your sex organs are never functioning. Oops. Might lend itself to the suicide rate. We'll talk about that later. And transvestites. People who dressed up like women. It was pretty clear which one you were. But because people who didn't even have, ironically enough, the balls to cut them off, still wanted to be considered more than a transvestite, they created gender, which isn't biological. It's how you identify. It's your soul, whatever it is. And so you no longer have transsexuals and transvestites. You have transgenders. There are no little transsexuals in grade school, in middle school. They can't have the sex change operation. They can put on a dress. Maybe they can shave the peach fuzz. Maybe you can even pump them full of cancerous estrogen and make them another. Maybe you can. Maybe that's a way to will it into existence. Pump them full of estrogen. We know what that does to the male body. Not good. It's cancerous. Give him penile cancer. He's in the national news. It's a very clever ploy.
Brilliant.
They knew what they were doing all along.
Brilliant.
And Barack Obama says they're the most vulnerable. I think the most vulnerable might have been the babies who were born alive in Illinois who you voted against protecting from survived abortions, you piece of crap. I think those might be a little more vulnerable than chicks with dicks going into the restroom. Can we say that? Probably not.
I don't know.
You might have to,
but
you might have to edit that.
It's a band name now. It's a
great
say
band.
that. It's a great band.
It's a great band name.
Alternative on the weekends and hard rock on the.
And this is where we are. And they might pull federal funding to schools if you don't let boys in the girls' restroom. It's just so politically transparent. The guy was against gay marriage until he realized that he could be for gay marriage, and now the transgender. There are no little transgenders. That's what's so crazy about it. We've changed language around so much to create a term that doesn't exist and protect a class who really are in need of counseling. And we were going to have a psychiatrist on today. She'll be moved to next week, Dr. Phyllis Boniface. She's lectured on these issues. Of course, John Hopkins won't perform it. They won't perform the transgender surgery. So this has been kind of a hot topic. We want to move on from that, and we'll get to the salon pedophilia. So we'll move on to that, which will be more fun, and the feminist slam poetry, and a girl beat the heck out of another girl, and it was a race crime. Little twist on that one. We'll bring it in. We'll bring in the video with Paul Joseph Watson. But up next, Ben Shapiro. He's a lovely Jewish gentleman. Stay tuned. Okay, Mr. Manning, are you comfortable? Yeah, no, I'm great. I'm looking forward to getting this road on the show. Yes, you reversed show and road. Well, we have a long list of potential donors that I think you'll find are quite satisfactory. Oh, thanks, Doc. No, I appreciate it. Okay, so we got here Hamill? Yes, there we have Mr. Hamill. McCormick, I'm guessing that's Irish? Yes, he's from a suburb of Boston. His vitals and health parameters were studied. Yeah, well, that's great. Wachkowski, is that, what is that, Polish? Yes. Very suitable gentleman. You actually are a perfect match. Okay. Yeah, I just was wondering if you, yes. If you had anyone... I'm not seeing on this list. What seems to be the problem? I had in mind, I don't know if you could find a donor who's maybe more ethnic. I'm sorry, I don't think I follow. You know what, I'll wait. Mr. Manning, the longer you wait, the likelihood of complications goes up significantly. I'm gonna take my chances. All right, we're back. Not gay, Jared. Class it up.
I gotta work on my dance moves. I need some fresh ones.
Classy guests coming up, so you gotta class it up. Glad to have him. You know him, dailywire.com, his wonderful podcast. Most people love him. Some people don't.
No.
Not everybody loves everybody. The Ben Shapiro Show, and you can follow him on Twitter at Ben Shapiro. Ben, thank you for being with us, sir.
Hey, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Well, when I tweeted out that, just so happened on the show, and I'll talk about it with him later, we spoke behind the scenes. He was actually very complimentary. It was you and Paul Joseph Watson. People thought there was going to be like the Civil War. It's like, no, they're just both on doing their segments, and they'll be very nice. And people were disappointed because you're the firebrand who goes in and debates.
They want to watch a slaughter.
Oh, yeah, no worries. I mean, listen, I'm happy to debate anybody at any time, and I'm happy to not debate anybody if they don't feel like doing it. So.
This
and
is
no skin
true.
off my nose. Right now, honest to God, I'm a little tired. I mean, I had a baby like a week and a half ago, and I've had about 7 hours of combined sleep in the last 2 weeks.
And he still manages to maintain his figure.
He does it well.
Oh yeah, well, you gotta keep working out. I mean, otherwise, how do you have energy to lift a 6-pound child?
This is true. Well, it depends. It depends on how you could just be Donald Trump and not lift your child at all. So here's the thing. Right off the bat, people are going to go, well, why? Oh, Ben did agree to debate Milo. So they were both scheduled to be on this show for a while. I want to provide this context because obviously Ben has been on the program and Milo has been on the program. Ben agreed, and a lot of people were tweeting Milo. Oh, no, listen, Milo, I understand. We've talked about it. There's some contractual issues at play that are out of my control, so I don't want to throw anyone under the bus. I just wanted to clarify that. But Ben, did you have anything to add?
No, I mean, obviously Milo, he's such a courageously independent figure and would never take orders from anybody. So I'm pleased to learn that his paymasters at Breitbart have rejected the possibility of a debate. I mean, let's say it like it is. And it wasn't just your show either, Stephen. I mean, as you know, I agreed to Dave Rubin invited us both on too, and I said sure to that, and Milo said no to that. But don't worry, Milo's very brave. He fights all the social justice warriors, all the people who really need to be fought on behalf of the shitlord army. Milo's really out front doing that.
This is now where Jared's going to have to hit the dump button. I thought you were a nice man, Ben. All right. Well, listen, I was trying to be diplomatic about it. Milo is always welcome on the show. Ben is welcome on the show. No, we don't need to class it up.
No, not now.
This guy thinks he's above us with all his shekels, and he can just look down on us.
Shekel master.
Okay, so anyway, that's why the debate isn't happening, because I know some people are going to be thinking, oh, are they going to do a surprise debate? No, it's not happening. I want to respect Ben and Milo, both as guests. They're welcome on the show, just like D.L. Hughley and Imam Chowdhury is also welcome on the show. Busy week. I wanted to ask you this. So you obviously you're not a big fan of Donald Trump, and we've talked about that, and that's why you get flack on both sides. But I will say this: the Supreme Court list, assuming he sticks to it, not all that bad. Did you feel that way when you looked at it?
No, the list is fine. I mean, I haven't taken a lot of time looking at it because I don't think he's telling the truth. But you know, aside from that, sure, the list is fine. He outsourced it in the same way he outsourced his immigration policy to Jeff Sessions. He's against outsourcing except when it's all of his intellectual heavy lifting. Then he outsources it to anybody in the vicinity, which is, listen, it's fine. If he doesn't know anything about the courts, which clearly he doesn't, since he thinks the Supreme Court is designed to prosecute Hillary Clinton and that judges sign bills, as we learned from his debates. All of that is fine so long as he would actually stick to this, but a good promise requires two things. One, the content of the promise be good, and two, the person making the promise is credible. The first part, okay. The second part, not so much.
But even then, though, if we have to be fair,
name a promise Donald Trump has kept, a position he's held for longer than 2 seconds. As I've said before, he has more positions than the Kama Sutra, and the fact that he is throwing this out there as though he's going to suddenly stand stalwart against the Democrat Senate, which he will probably have, or against a Democratic filibuster, which he will undoubtedly have no matter what.
Right.
Yeah, he'll come up with a compromise candidate, and that'll be that.
Well, the one promise is that just behind the scenes, I know for a fact that if he wins, you'll be audited, and I have no doubt that he's sticking to it.
I'm sitting here in my nice house, and I'm lamenting the day when my house is going to be a 10-foot by 10-foot cell. It's going to be sad.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Maybe they'll put you under house arrest like Dinesh. You never know. I have to be fair though with that. It's better than I thought, and I was worried that he wouldn't even be smart enough to surround himself with people to say, hey, these are people you should put on your list. So don't we have to say that at the very least that's a step in the right direction? The fact that he presented
So your
a list,
perspective is basically Samuel Johnson's perspective on a woman talking intelligently, or a woman talking, right? That it's like a dog walking on its hind legs?
No. My perspective is it's not Sarah Palin clearly didn't give him this list, is my point. Someone smarter than him did.
Your expectations here, if your expectations are so low that it's like, oh, wow, Donald Trump had somebody who put a list together for him. Wow.
Well, when you say it like that, Ben.
But I mean, look, again, the list is fine. The list is good. He says lots of good stuff on his website. If you look at his tax plan on his website before he changed it, that was a fine tax plan, which I've said. His immigration plan on his website, about 3/4 of it is perfectly great. Then he talks, and sounds come out of his face, and those sounds do not resemble anything that is on his website, and it's clear he doesn't either know how to read or has not read his own website. So I can't take seriously a man who has flipped every single position that he's had in this campaign except for the wall, and that one's just the last one to fall.
Yes. Well, I see what you did there. Fall, wall. We have a lot of puns on this show today.
lot
I don't
of
like
punny
it.
jokes.
I'm not a fan of it. People are trying to do my job for me. Okay, let's talk. Since he's a lawyer, let's talk about Hillary Clinton with the Supreme Court. What that looks like. A lot of people don't understand, and I've talked about this. I'm not a lawyer, but when you look at the Supreme Court case, is it Heller versus D.C.? What it was?
Yes.
Yeah, Heller versus D.C. The arguments against the current interpretation of the Second Amendment are so much more important than the fact that they decided to let it stand. The arguments against it were not capacity bans, no assault weapons. The arguments against it were no private American citizen actually has the right to self-preservation through a firearm. Those were the only legal arguments made against it. So under a Hillary Clinton Supreme Court, what do you see being, because that's very likely that she's a president of the United States, right? The Vegas betting odds say that's what's most likely to happen. What as a lawyer, what are your biggest concerns legally? Where do you think they have the strongest case? Do you think it's Second Amendment goes away?
Yeah, I mean, the Second Amendment goes away as an individual right under the federal Constitution because that's what the left would do. They would probably roll back some of the decisions on abortion, so they'd knock down a lot of state restrictions on abortion. Presumably, they would also knock down Hobby Lobby. They would rule that the state has a compelling interest in forcing businesses and religious institutions to accept iterations of same-sex marriage. Yeah, it would be a disaster. I mean,
that would really harm the googly eye manufacturers.
Yeah.
Well, that's the important thing.
With the Hobby Lobby, where would I go?
Where would we go for our rogue gun costumes?
Wherever would
I don't know.
go?
I mean, once they take away the pipe cleaners, I'm out.
You know, it's funny. You can't actually buy pipe cleaners at the drugstore because it's still tobacco paraphernalia.
Really?
You have to be 18. Who uses them for cleaning pipes?
What?
I do. Okay, so Second Amendment, but what would you list your top 2 or 3 biggest concerns under a Hillary Clinton appointed Supreme Court?
Well, I mean, I think that the top concern would be the overruling of the First Amendment, not just Citizens United, but I think that the thing that Hillary Clinton would do and that a lot of folks on the left have suggested is that hate crimes legislation is not violative of the First Amendment, and that's scary stuff. Not hate crimes, hate speech legislation, right? Like in Canada. I think Hillary would push that. I think that her appointed justices and Obama's appointed justices would push that hard. That's frightening stuff. Now, remember, there still has to be a congressional battle and a state-level battle in terms of pushing the legislation. The Supreme Court doesn't pass laws, but they do knock down laws. But the idea here would be that the First Amendment would become basically whatever the Supreme Court says it is, as opposed to you get to say what you want without fear of government reprisal. So that would be my number one. Second Amendment, well, I mean, there are a couple of First Amendment issues. That's one. The other First Amendment issue that scares the living hell out of me is the idea that private institutions can be forced to teach or accept same-sex marriage, and that would extend to religious institutions, because I don't think they'll stop at Hobby Lobby. I think they'll come after your church. I think they'll come after 501c3s. I think they'll come after parents who refuse to educate
they've
their
done that,
children.
and they're doing that in Canada. I don't know if you saw this just this week, the ban on anti-transgender propaganda in Canada.
Yeah, and then they'll move in that direction. So that scares the hell out of me.
And they don't define what's
obviously
propaganda. I think propaganda is, well, if you believe that sex is biological, that's hateful propaganda. That's the problem.
Science is propaganda. Science is propaganda. And yeah, so I think they'll move in that direction. I think that they'll move in the direction of striking down the Second Amendment and declaring that it's not an individual right, it's a communal right, but only under the auspices of government, which means that it doesn't exist, right? There's no such right. Although, on the Second Amendment one, come down to where you live. I mean, in California, they would actually try and knock down doors and take guns.
Yeah.
Even though there are literally millions of guns here. Try that in Texas, and things are going to get real. You know, that's not something Texans take particularly lightly.
No, I've
and
openly
even
said that where people, because I was talking with Courtney about this, we say, well, we were kind of looking at the ranchers in Oregon saying, okay, and I said, okay, what does it take for me to actually say, okay, time for some kind of violent insurrection? Maybe there's something else before this, but I am willing to say definitively, if they try and come to take my firearms from my home that I already own, that to me is violent militia time.
Yeah, I mean, these are all, I mean, we're getting real close to the borderline of what people find is their final line before violent insurrection. I mean, if somebody says to me, I can't raise my kid in the religious fashion that I choose, and the government's going to come and try and do something to or with my kid, that is generations of religious people have died in order to protect the right to educate their children in their religious faith, and that's not going to stop just because Hillary Clinton wants something different. So yeah, that scares me. I think that Hillary Clinton would expand the power of eminent domain even further than it currently is, which is hard to believe, but she would. She'd nationalize industry, and the Supreme Court would probably go along with it. The Supreme Court clearly would look at all of the right to work states and try to knock down right to work laws. So it would be a disaster. I mean,
Right.
when I say I'm never Trump, I'm not minimizing how bad Hillary Clinton's going to be. I think Hillary Clinton is a full-scale disaster. I think that Trump is probably going to be a slightly lesser disaster as president than Hillary Clinton. My fear is that Trump, in the process, turns the Republican Party, the only vehicle for an actual restoration of constitutionalism in the country, into the Trump Party, which means that we basically, if we're moving toward the cliff, as I've said, at 70 miles an hour right now, and Hillary escalates that to 90 miles per hour, and Trump escalates it to 75 miles per hour, but in the process rips out the reverse gear, then it doesn't really matter very much. I mean, we're going to hit the cliff.
So even with the list that he's provided right now, and everything that you just kind of mentioned as your concerns, you still wouldn't, you don't think it's enough at all to go, okay, well, when the reality of Hillary Clinton sets in to pull the lever for Trump?
Well, so here's sort of my feeling. I totally understand. I really do. There are people like Dennis Prager, who I respect, who says, you know, he's horrible, I have to vote for him anyway. Bobby Jindal makes this argument. He's horrible, I have to vote for him anyway.
Yeah,
That's
I think both are
I
tenable positions, and I've said that.
I totally agree. Totally agree. This is a tenable position. You know, I think that the Stop Hillary argument, it's not, in my view, the strongest argument, but it is a viable argument. The reason that I don't believe it is because I don't believe Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is an authoritarian. I think his lies about what he would do at the Supreme Court are just that. I wrote a piece for National Review last week where I said, here's what Trump needs to do. And it was really two elements. One is sign yourself onto conservatism. And two was prove to me that you're credible. And he's making some moves in that direction in the signing on to conservatism realm, although obviously this is the same Donald Trump who said 2 days ago that he is averse to North Carolina's transgender bathroom law, right? That he thinks everybody basically should be able to go to the bathroom where they want, and he's not against the government taking a role in that. But let's assume he moves conservative, although I would find that weird. I don't think he's really going to do that in any heavy way. I think this is a sop on an issue he doesn't really care about.
Okay, well, before we go to the break, because I want to stay on that, and then we'll move on after. What would he have to do to prove it? Like, what's your barometer for you to say, okay, maybe he's conservative?
This consistently for the next 6 months, right?
The Supreme Court thing continuing on this trail for 6 months.
Yes, and he has to keep saying the same thing over and over, and he can't flip, and he can't change his position every 5 seconds. I don't think that's too much to ask, because that's pretty much what I've asked of every candidate, except most candidates don't flip as often.
So then you're not never Trump. You're never Trump as is, but you remain open to the possibility. If you've set these are the standards, and if he proves himself.
Correct. I can only evaluate Trump on the evidence that I've been presented. If the evidence changes, my opinion may change.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that's why I've said that I can't go in for a hashtag, because there are people who don't have that train of thought, where it's even destroy the system because of the Trump thing. So no, I think you're right on the money. Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire, listen to his podcast, and we will bring him back after the break. Yeah, we have to go to a break. Oh my gosh, this show's going by so quickly. Louder with Kreider. Stay tuned, or don't.
Chicago PD.
Hey, Thomas Manning calling. Hope all is well.
Thomas Manning. Why do I know that name?
Well, it's a pretty common name.
Oh, you're the guy with the cack.
That's me. Listen, I was wondering if you had anyone come through there. I know Chicago's had a pretty rough year for violence.
Yeah, it's been terrible. It's such a tragedy.
I know, it's awful. I was wondering if you had anyone come through there who were organ donors.
Who were what?
Organ donors. You know, particularly I know with the rise in gang violence. I don't know if you've seen anything like that recently. An organ donor from some kind of a shootout, perhaps a rival turf controversy gone wrong.
I'm not sure I follow.
Yeah, you know, listen, it doesn't have to come from any specific gang at all. I just mean if there's an organ donor who may have come in, could be, you know, Bloods, Crips, NAACP, youth intramural basketball team.
Did you just say the youth intramural basketball team?
Yeah, you know, but I'm just throwing out just general ideas.
I'm afraid the only body we've gotten here is from a Mr. Santelli of the Santelli crime family.
Crime family? Really? Those are still around?
Yeah, the mob's been really bad for us in Chicago.
And what are they known for?
You know, trafficking and narcotics, prostitution, but Their main specialty here has always been assassination. They have a big racket.
Assassination? You mean like?
Yeah, hitmen, full bore.
And are any of the rest of them still around?
Yeah, we can't charge their ass. We try to get this one guy on tax evasion, but you can find him down the neighborhood on the south side. It's not too far.
Santelli family on the south side. Thank you very much, officer.
Well, can I help you with it?
You're a strange animal, that's what I know. But you're a strange animal, I got to follow. Oh, I'm in the spiritus.
Glad to be back. DailyWire.com, The Ben Shapiro Show, at Ben Shapiro on Twitter. Glad for him to be back with us. Okay, so I wanted to move on from the Trump thing because we can talk about this till we're blue in the face. But I'm glad that you said.
Or orange.
Or stop it. I don't like the horrible jokes that are going on today. But I'm glad that you said, because that's me too. I've said, well, listen, I have to lay out standards and I have to be consistent. And if these are met, I can't just say never Trump, trot out Mitt Romney. And that's where anytime you get into a hashtag and you create joiners, whether it's Trump 2016 or I'm immediately uncomfortable. So I very rarely go in for any of those. But I think you're right. I think that's a pretty reasonable barometer.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason I've said never Trump is because I feel like we should at least set a standard. I said I had an hour-long debate with Prager on this particular subject, and what I said to him is there has to be somebody on the right who you feel would be a better president than Hillary Clinton, but you wouldn't vote for just because you think they're a bad person or a person who is a threat to the things you believe in. And he acknowledged as much. I said, well, Trump has crossed that line for me. If he steps back across that line, then we can talk about whether, I would vote for him. Mm-hmm. I would if he steps back across that line. But it's a long haul for him. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy, as he said, he doesn't like to repent. He doesn't like to repent mistakes. So the idea of Donald Trump doing an about face seems a little far-fetched to me.
It seems a little far-fetched. I'm always in the Supreme Court list. I was going, okay, that's a step in the right direction this week. So I have to try and be fair. Because even long before, a lot of these other hosts who are out there, we've made fun of Trump before he even announced his candidacy on this program, just because for comedy, we just always thought it was funny. I've never been on the Trump train at all. It was never like, well, maybe I was like, no, this is not the guy you want. But I still have to be consistent with it.
No, for sure. And again, it's better that he releases a list like this than that he not release a list like this. I would just like to, hold him to it. Let's just hold him to it. I don't trust him.
No, I agree with you, and I think it's good that you do have something tangible right now. Here's this list. We know. Okay, let's stick with this, and we can see if he's actually kept his word. Okay, so we have that going on. We have the Trump deal going on, and now you have congratulations. You've had now how many? Do you have two?
Yeah, this is my second baby. Yeah, this one's a boy. Yeah, so I have a girl who's about almost 2.5, and I have a boy who's, let's see, 10 days old, 11 days old. Yeah.
Now, when the boy came out, did you burden him by assigning a gender, or did you let him choose?
Well, I let him choose, but he looked down and he said, "Oh, I'm a boy."
Yeah, well, he's very vocal for a young child.
He was quite vocal, actually. He was actually screaming about it, believe it or not. And at his circumcision, he was quite aware what sex he was. So
yeah,
there's that.
I can imagine. Now you're going to have a bunch of people in the comments section talking about genital mutilation. Thank you, Ben. Thank you for lighting that fire ablaze. They compare it to the Islamic genital mutilation of women that guarantees they can have no sexual enjoyment whatsoever, with a little bit of skin there. And I know even just commenting on that, now we're going to have a bunch of comment sections. Isn't it funny? The most discriminatory people on the planet, the most hateful propagandists, are doctors in the pregnancy ward.
Well, my favorite thing about the left is that the same people who want to ban circumcision say insurance companies should be forced to pay for a man who wants to cut off his entire penis.
Well, that's a good point. A hateful one, but I understand where you're coming from.
Or a dull point, depending how you want to look at the old object.
Well,
I hope not. I hope not a dull point. That would be a terrible way to do that surgery.
I think you meant dull point after the surgery. Dull point after, not a dull point used to perform the surgery.
Oh no!
That's just
oh
horrific.
Lord!
Wow.
That's what nightmares are made of.
And at that point, if you say good point, you say dull point. We're talking about the actual region. I would say open wound, because that's really what you're talking about. The body tries to reclose it.
Yeah, giant just.
Did you know that, Ben? The body tries to close it as a wound.
I did know that, actually. Yes, because it turns out that is not, in fact, a female genital.
No, no. And unfortunately, you can never have an orgasm again. That's just absolute fact. Like, I think that's a big reason why the suicide rate isn't so much better. It's like, okay, I've got the accoutrements of being a lady. It's like, oh, great, yeah, now I finally get to fulfill.
It's so
this.
cruel. God, these people are so cruel. What they're willing to do in the name of their perverse view of gender identity. I mean, literally let mentally ill people mutilate themselves and not in any way make their lives better or less suicidal just to prove a point. It's amazing.
Well, let me ask
It's
you this.
amazing and sick.
Just imagine anything else, right? Whether it's any other kind of, I don't know if you want to say fetish or let's say mental condition that force you to do something drastic. Okay, so you're not transgender, but let's point the situation. Ben, how do you think you would feel if you felt compelled to do something, you went through a transition, and then afterwards found out, by the way, you're never going to experience sexual pleasure again?
Yeah, that would suck. That wouldn't be good.
I think the suicide chances would go high even for Benny.
Yeah, that is definitely true. Hey, listen, we Jews enjoy ourselves a good orgasm or two, and that's why we have kids, right?
It's true. Yeah.
Let's be real. That was the fun part.
I would imagine Dennis Prager does, because that guy always talks in the male-female hour. I get borderline uncomfortable with the sexual stuff. I'm like, oh, he's so smart, but he sounds like a dirty old man.
Good Lord.
It's true. You can't deny it.
That's a good turn I did not see coming.
No, I love
That's the pleasure of Louder with Crowder. You're heading along on that train track, and then suddenly you're running along like Harrison Ford with your feet shackled together, trying to jump into that ravine before the train hits you.
Yes, but it is true with Dennis. That's what I love about Dennis Prager. He'll talk. We've talked about him. He'll talk about things, not just politics, but he'll talk about cultural issues. And he has a male-female hour, and he'll just get like very blunt. Anytime an older person gets very blunt on the sex stuff, I'm like, no.
He talks about it the same way you do, except not funny. Right?
It's funny to me. It's funny to me. Yeah, and it's funny when I met him in person for the first time. I remember feeling uncomfortable because I was like, "Don't think of that. Don't think of that. Don't think of that." And that was the immediate thing that went into my mind at an event in Chicago.
That is great. Yeah.
Well, congratulations. So, little girl, little boy, and that'll 2.5 years apart. That'll be fun. Have you noticed right away inherent, even when they're like from when your little girl was only what are we? Couple weeks old now?
11, yeah, a couple weeks old. Well, he's definitely more energetic. I mean, we thought, when he was in the womb, we thought this kid's going to be a hellion because he was kicking my wife a lot. Like it's the coolest thing. You'll see when your wife is pregnant, it's the neatest thing in the world when you feel the baby kicking. It's just amazing. And so the baby was kicking her from the inside, and he was kicking a lot harder than she did. And so I thought, okay, maybe this is just a second child thing because second kids sometimes are just hellions. And so. He came out and he's really calm. So it wasn't that. It's just he's a boy and he kicks. I mean, he was kicking harder, months earlier than she was. And I have a feeling that once he's going to walk faster, he's going to crawl faster. He's going to be hard to keep up with for sure.
Yeah, I can imagine. Well, he's gonna walk faster and crawl faster because he is a boy. And they're stronger. That's why women don't have to do pull-ups to get into the Marines. They don't need pull-ups. You got Chris Kyle, and you got a broad who had to do 10 female push-ups. Ben, where's the best place for people to find you, brother?
And you can check me out at Twitter at Ben Shapiro or go to dailywired.com and subscribe to our podcast as well. So Stephen's podcast is awesome, and you should check out Ben Shapiro Show. Our podcast, too, is similarly awesome. We do it every day, and it's always
Exactly. His is daily, so it can help. If for people who listen, you need more than once a week, I highly recommend the
He just plugged our show on our show.
He just plugged our own show on our show.
That's like a show plug within a show plug.
He slipped in his own show. We have to go to a break, don't we?
We
have very few seconds left.
10 seconds.
All right, both shows are good. Subscribe. Louder with Crowder. Ben Shapiro, thank you. We will be back.
Thanks so much.
Well, this is breaking news on Louder with Crowder. I am Perry Matheson. This week, Donald Trump raised eyebrows for critics and satisfied some of his most fervent supporters by releasing his list of presumptive nominees for the Supreme Court. We take you now live to a Donald Trump press conference.
Okay, listen, truthfully, all right? Okay, everyone's going to love this list, okay? I'm going to take from this list, I give you a list of 11. Okay, but what's the Supreme Court? All right, frankly, what is it? Like, is it 4? There's 7 judges. Of course. But listen, there's not enough judges. If I'm president, okay, we are going to have so many judges. We're going to have the best judges.
Yes, Mr. Trump. Which would you say on this current list is your favorite?
The list? Oh, listen, they're all my favorite, okay? Frankly, that's why I make the list. I make so many lists. Because I have a list of so many people, and they call me the list-making machine. Okay, I would never call myself that. That's what they call me.
Well, okay, it doesn't necessarily have to be your favorite, Mr. Trump. Just name one.
What? Come on, what are you trying to do? Is this, gotcha journalism? Is that what you're doing? I don't need to name one. Okay, I gave you a list of 11.
Yeah, we're all aware you gave us a list of 11, but I just want you to name one.
What?
Name one Supreme Court nominee from your list right now.
John. Okay, frankly, John's great.
And now for a message from Paco, the friendly homophobe.
That's me. You see, in America, there are people who are very upset all the time, and they get mad and they fight at each other. Now over the feminism and over the bathroom for the guy who's not a girl but who's want to be a girl. And it's make lots of problem for people who want to be in the country that we don't have in Mexico. And this problem, a lot of them, even though I know it is because you are born that way, but it is make more problem because you are not straight.
Good to have some electronica in the second hour. Producing with me in video studio, as always, is Not Gay Jared. You can follow him on Twitter at NotGayJared. I fulfill my legal obligations. I don't care if you draw your own conclusions. So we'll have Paul Joseph Watson coming up afterward. I want to get to something right now that was just every now and then you have something that's just straight down center plate. Burlington College. Burlington College. I was raised in Montreal.
You say college, and you already kind of get a feeling for where the story's going.
Yes.
Just say the words. Not happy places.
Well, their former president was Mrs. Bernie Sanders. Jane Sanders. Surprised she didn't keep her maiden name.
Lucky kids.
And she said over Burlington College. Little known fact about Burlington College. I was raised in Montreal. And so we used to see commercials all the time for Burlington College. Come on down to Burlington College. You know those commercials. And you make friends, learn, get equipped. Anyway, it's no longer. Jane Sanders was its president, and due to the crushing debt, they had to close their doors. Jane Sanders. So let me read this. At the end of 2010, Miss Sanders, and you can bring this up on the screen, took out $10 million in loans on behalf of Burlington College to purchase a 32-acre swath of land from the Roman Catholic. I'm going to mispronounce this. I'm not going to say it because I know I'm going to get
crucified.
I'm going to get crucified with like Mizzou. The worst thing as a Canadian too is solace. Solace is hard. I still often would say solace, and it'll sound like soulless. Yeah. So I just avoid these words. It's a weird hybrid sometimes being French Canadian but being English and American, and you learn, and I still put a dash through my 7.
If you would have gone and missed Bernie Sanders school, she would have straightened you out, I'm sure.
Land up for sale to cover the cost of a $17 million sexual abuse settlement. Well, of course you did, Janie. As Heat Street reported last month, the college almost immediately fell short. I love it. Almost immediately fell short on its financial obligations as fundraising pledges and commitments Ms. Sanders cited in a loan agreement never materialized. Well, who'd have seen that one coming? Less than a year after Ms. Sanders resigned, taking with her a $200,000 severance package. But I thought they weren't part of the fat cats. Did you realize $200,000 severance package? You add that up with Bernie's salary, they're part of the 1%. Oh. By 2014, because of its shaky finances and running deficits, Burlington College found itself placed on probation for 2 years. Anyways, it's done. Their financial hurdles have been officially declared insurmountable at this time. Now, is it fair? I know, is it fair to tar and feather Bernie Sanders for the actions of his wife? Yes, entirely. It is completely fair because they both, when Bernie Sanders promises you free college, this is what he means. This is how they do it. This is the example. Unless Bernie Sanders wants to throw his wife under the bus and just, he has no idea how to do it. You know, fine, that's fine. Then he's just a horrible husband. But he's probably that too. He's probably bad at everything, Bernie Sanders. The guy didn't get a job until he was 40.
Have you seen him hula hoop?
Did he do a hula hoop?
I don't know, but I'm sure he's fantastic.
I've got to imagine he's completely devoid of skill. When Bernie Sanders promises free health care, think Burlington College.
Well,
when he promises more government benefits for everybody, I want you to think Burlington College. When Bernie Sanders promises you anything, I want you to think Burlington College. Here's something really funny, too. On Twitter, I was getting people, when they were mad about communism, we talked about communism, they're going, well, it didn't work because you're talking about fractions European countries. Take the population of the United States and it can work. That's what a lot of people will say with free college. Add enough people. Here's the thing. It's actually the opposite. Something like free healthcare is much easier to implement in a place like Norway or Iceland, an almost entirely homogenous, very small population. It doesn't get easier when you get bigger and you introduce all different kinds of cultures and language barriers and 47% of people who don't pay any federal income tax. It doesn't get easier. Every study we have available to us, every measurable barometer that we have available to us, tells us that if something is financially insolvent on a small scale, the worst thing you can do is make it bigger as it relates to government programs. That's not how it works. That's what they promise you. Add more people, add more money, and eventually it will work itself out. What is this? This math doesn't work. I throw a couple more $1 trillion at it. Oh, okay. So let's just picture Burlington College. I want you to think of Burlington College every time the Sanderses or Hillary Clinton promise you everything. Think of Burlington College. Now think of Burlington College plus $18 trillion in debt. Tell me if that makes you sleep any easier. My answer is kind of rhetorical. I don't.
No.
Some would say I sleep poorly. If I think of that.
Poorly. Good choice of words.
When you're worried and you can't sleep, don't count debt. Don't count the deficit. It doesn't work. And it's an exercise in futility because once you think you're done counting it, there's another trillion added on top of it.
And I don't know numbers past 10.
But no one else was covering this. No one else from the leftist media, they weren't really covering that Burlington College went under. And that to me is just so pivotal. Here's the perfect microcosm of how it works. Also, we know that Bernie Sanders is part of the the Sanders are part of the 1%. Okay, so tweet me at @IceCrowder what you think about that. Is it fair to say that this is a relatively accurate representation of what Bernie Sanders would do with college? I say yes. You may say his wife is a stinky wench, and it's not fair to lump them in together. Jared, we have a video to play. This played, and we will have Paul Joseph Watson on, not next segment, the segment afterward. This was on Twitter. I guess it's not necessarily new, but it finally made the rounds. So this is actually a hate crime, and we're against hate crimes here at Louder with Crowder, racially motivated crimes. No one should be targeted or specifically physically harmed simply because of their race. And so, listen, we'll give this one to you. Abhorrent, just repugnant behavior. Jared, roll clip. Wait a second. That's not Blake Lively.
Now watch, keep your name in my motherfucking mouth. You don't remember your fucking skin tone. You gonna watch who the fuck you talk to.
Wait, hold on. You're gonna have to hit the dump button way too much for radio. When I read this and it was, remember your effing skin tone, I really didn't expect this.
No.
I did not see this coming.
No, not at all.
Now, let's contrast that with the outrage over Blake Lively saying Oakland booty or anything. It doesn't have to be Blake Lively. I get that she's a celebrity. Any kind of misspeaking. Picture Trigglypuff. Picture people who get mad when I say Muhammad is a terrorist, right? That requires that I be banned and trotted out to UMass and forced to apologize.
Guy was a real douche.
Muhammad was a real douche. Versus somebody beating the ever-loving hell out of someone and you're like, well, what motivated this? Let me see this, detective. What motivated this? Well, she did say what's motivating me is your skin tone. She did say I'm beating you because of your skin tone. That does seem to be a lead.
Some detectives may jump at that little puzzle piece there.
No, we don't have any leads. Really, detective? Well, there's the one thing. What she said, mind your effing skin tone, and then she hit her some more, and she talked about her skin tone. Some could say she almost seemed aggravated by her skin tone, almost like this beating was
like she was disappointed by the hue.
One could argue it might have even been racially motivated. Now I know it gets old when it's just too easy shooting fish in a barrel. What everything is about, you could pick the racism where it's not white people, and some people make their living off of that. We don't do it super often, but this is one where I'm wondering when all week long I'm reading at HuffPo, I'm reading at Salon and protection of pedophiles. I'm reading about one thing too. Disability so white. They were writing about how even if you're disabled, your white privilege It's not negated because you're disabled. You're still privileged because you're white. And it was talking about how racism, I think I have this actually. Let me see. I think it was Liberal Lunacy. Yes, who came on the show, of course, our resident gimp. Disability to white calls out media for not depicting disabled POC. POC means people of color, just so you know now. What is racist is colored people.
Colored people.
People of color is correct. And it was talking about how they aren't accurately represented. Look, they're all white people. Listen, at a certain point, you don't have a huge portion of the population who are disabled, okay? And you don't have a huge portion of the population who are black. At a certain point, you're all about intersectionality. There just aren't enough black disabled people who want to be on your leftist blog. That's what it is.
They could have at least thrown a little trooper in there, I thought, though.
Could have thrown a little trooper in there, but I don't think you're allowed to say that's a disability. That's not nice. Don't make fun of midgets. We're gonna get emails from the Midget Guild.
My feed hasn't been coming through lately. Can't keep up with the hate crime memos.
So this is another thing. Look, they're all mad that they happen to portray disabled people as white. Yeah, look at this. Look at this. Bring up this image. Look at that privilege. Look at that privilege. Look at that. They're going to sit here and complain, for those who are listening. They're talking about racism and how white people are often portrayed in ads regarding disability people. And look at this privilege, and they're showing a lady with a flipper. They're trying to tell you that she's still white, so she still benefits. Am I supposed to believe that she benefits more than anyone who's not white? Is that the white privilege? Or am I just supposed to believe that she somehow benefits more because she's not a black disabled person? By the way, you want to talk about something? People aren't going to like this. The Paralympics, we talked about that last week. I got an email as to how they selected the Paralympics. I stand corrected.
Really?
But all of a sudden in the 100-meter wheel, it's not all black people. Oh, how the tables have turned. So this is something going on. My point with this beating that takes place is you contrast it with the outrage over Oakland booty. You contrast it with the outrage over disability so white. You contrast it with the feminist outrage over using rational thought. And there is no consistency. And I hate it when the right does this as well. I hate it when anybody, now the right doesn't do it nearly as often as the left, but sometimes you see it where they get outraged. How dare you say this about Trump? Or how dare you say this about Cruz? No, listen, stop being offended and stop being inconsistent, okay? Let people live their lives. I don't care if you're white, black, you have a flipper, you're a midget, you're a gimp. Nobody cares. Well, some people care. Some people have fetishes for that. You can get on a webcam, make a lot of money. I saw one girl who was 400 pounds. All she did was eat fast food. She made 6 figures. I don't have that privilege.
No.
Who's going to pay 6 figures to watch me eat on a webcam? And Salon with the pedophile. I'm trying to find the right segment to get in this. This is the 3rd time with Salon's pedophile, where they did an interview, a video interview with this man claiming to not be a monster. He has groomed and molested children. Everything that you've been accused of saying, thinking, well, maybe Marxism is at the root of socialism. No. Well, it is now. We see. Well, it's a slippery slope. What about pedophilia? How dare you, sir? Well, here we are with pedophilia. Well, it's just never ending. It never stops. And if you contrast and you look at these issues, I want you to do me a favor. HuffPo, read it every day and just contrast it where their outrage lies. We'll be back, Louder with Crowder, with more.
This is breaking news on Louder with Crowder. I'm Perry Matheson. As we keep you updated on the developing story of a recent rash of assassination attempts on NBA players live, we now have word that Shaquille O'Neal is holed up in his Los Angeles compound. The suspicious string of tragedies began when a pipe bomb went off at the NBA All-Star Game. Thought to be at the center of the controversy is the famous Santelli crime family from Chicago. Fortunately, due to the players' speed and agility, no one was severely injured. The story came to a crescendo last week when LeBron James narrowly avoided an aquatic fate off the PCH amidst a high-speed car chase. Oh, we are now getting reports, unconfirmed reports, that Shaquille O'Neal is deceased amidst a blaze of gunfire glory in his Los Angeles compound. Shaquille O'Neal has been confirmed dead. Also an organ donor, which is emblematic of the beloved NBA star, where even amidst his final action, he is giving back to the fans who've loved him so dearly. We'll keep you abreast as this story unfolds. For breaking news on Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson.
I wasn't paying attention to you, Not Gay Jared. We are back. Paul Joseph Watson after the break. I wanted to get to the poll. Oh, okay. Most people said racist. Most people think a silverback gorilla would beat a grizzly bear, but it's almost evenly split. 23 versus 26%. 51% just say racist. That's to be expected.
Racist.
We have to stop providing those answers as an option because I feel like they skew the polls.
They may. We should take a poll and ask them if it skews the poll.
Well,
poll the poll.
The pedophile thing, I just don't know if I have enough time to get into the pedophile deal. I really just don't know. We wrote about this. Our good friend Reginald helped us do some research. I'm amazed that Salon doesn't do any research. This is someone who said he would never touch a kid. We found out that he did. We wrote about it. He talked about grooming a girl, used this coded language. We went through his message board posts. And they're still posting demanding that you don't treat pedophiles as monsters. No, here's the thing. You're a pedophile, you're a monster. There's a certain level of lifestyle choices with which I'm no longer comfortable or tolerant at all. At all. You like getting sexual with children, you're gone. You're out of the village. You come back in, you're shot, and you're escorted from the village. Preferably deceased.
It seems reasonable.
Assuming room temperature. 6 feet under. Dead.
We don't want those organ donors.
You don't want it. I don't think you don't want that transplant.
No.
Something else I wanted to talk about. Let me go macro with you a little bit. It is no secret. Listen, I'm a Christian conservative. I've never run from it. I'm more of a federalist, constitutionalist. We try to present reasoned arguments here. I don't really sit here and why is that so? Because I believe God said it so. That's not what we do. One thing I will say, and I was talking with Not Gay Jared about this, I find myself having less and less in common with young Christians. And if you look right now at sort of the people, the anti-authoritarian movement, I find myself having a lot more in common with many atheists. Now, let me. There's a caveat here. That's because a lot of young Christians now, and people who are older Christians who listen to the show, you need to understand, they've been co-opted by the social justice left. A lot of young Christians, you know this, Jared, you've talked about this, they think Bernie is nice, socialism is nice. We just need to be accepting of everything. So gay, LGBTQ, AAIP. You see this more in churches.
Hashtag feel the feels.
Hashtag feel the feels. You see this more in churches than you do in a lot of any kind of critical thinking group on campus.
I go to my church and it astounds me how many Bernie stickers I see in the parking lot.
Right.
And it's a very young church, a lot of young people. So.
Yeah. And it is a problem. You don't have that with older people. So there has been a real flip. Because for a long time, I've been on YouTube and doing things online for years where it was just a witch hunt, right? These same atheists who now fight on the side of freedom of speech but consider themselves liberals, we'll get into that in a second, we're just out there attacking Christians with torches and pitchforks. The Tea Party is racist, and now they're furious that everything is racist, sexist, homophobic. That's a social justice left. These people consider themselves liberals, but they're frustrated with the social justice left. Here's something that I hope these atheists understand, because we have a lot of atheists who watch this show. Know who your allies are. This is important. Because if you want to destroy, long before you came out and you decided you wanted to fight the left, the biggest block of people who were doing it, and still the biggest block of people who are doing it, is the religious right, who you so vilified. And I'm talking about older Christians, baby boomers. They have consistently been on the side of freedom of speech. Now, I know you can go back to Focus on the Family and that kind of stuff where they tried to ban some TV shows. Not really, and a big part of that was spearheaded by Tipper Gore, of all people, okay? It wasn't necessarily a Christian thing, and it wasn't necessarily a right-wing thing. But if you look at South Park, Christians didn't try and ban it. They wanted it on at a later time. So if you're an atheist, and I know you've read a Hitchens book, and so you think you have a corner on it, listen, just because someone happens to believe in God, even if they're not a Christian, first off, both are tenable positions. You can be an atheist and be incredibly brilliant, and there are plenty of some of the most intelligent people throughout all of history have been Christians. Both are tenable positions. Okay, you have to accept that and say, you may disagree, but again, if you can't explain, if you're not willing to get on with somebody who is a Christian apologist and debate with them, you're really not in a position to call all Christians idiots. Just like I'm not, that's why I don't call all atheists idiots. I never have. So that should be, I think that's a respectable barometer. If you're not willing to personally get up and think that you can prove your case against someone who is of a respectable credibility in that argument, I'm not saying that you can't hold your beliefs, just don't assume they're all idiots. And it is important for these atheists right now who can fancy themselves classical liberals, which, by the way, if you believe in a progressive tax, you lose your right to bitch about freedom. Sorry. If you believe in a progressive tax and limiting access to firearms, you lose your leg to stand on. You cannot say I'm a liberal but I hate social justice warriors, but I believe in economic authoritarianism and I believe in, people shouldn't be able to have guns. No, you're not. You're doing exactly what the left does. You're completely abandoning reason and any kind of a baseline. You're so far off in the weeds you don't know how to get back to your path, okay? So you cannot claim to be an anti-authoritarian and demand economic authoritarianism. And then I love how the liberals, they just want to smoke pot, right? That's what they change. Like, well, what gives you the right, man? I want to smoke pot. You want to take more than half I earn because I work 14 hours a day and I'm successful. Don't talk to me about rights. You want to take away my revolver because you don't like that I have it.
But
you
it's
just
really
wanna,
cool. Maybe that's why they want it.
You just want to smoke weed. Anyways, what I want is for these atheists who've come into the fold recently, and like I'm saying, we have a lot more in common than I do with a lot of young Christians. I fully admit that because of this Bernie co-opting and feels overthinking. Understand that it's not a few people on YouTube on the internet. It's not a few atheists on Twitter. The single biggest block, and I mean by a very large margin, of people who are fighting to defend freedom of speech at a legislative and a cultural level at this point, it's not even close, are still conservative Christians who you vilified for years. So, you may not like the fact that they believe Jesus was a historical figure. You may not like the fact that they pray to a spaghetti monster. I've heard that one too. But understand, to take a quote from Officer Leahy, the double-barreled hair-trigger social justice crap machine gun you are looking down right now. And the only way that you have any reasonable chance of stopping this, of cutting it off at the pass, is by saying, all right, I disagree with Christians, and Christians saying, all right, I disagree with atheists, but we agree on freedom of speech. We agree on the right to be autonomous as a human being. Because I see this a lot. And you'll see people, they agree. They go, man, freedom of speech is really important. Yeah. And then a guy goes, hey, I'm at church. Oh, I lost all respect for you. Or vice versa. If you understand the fight that you are in, listen. And yeah, we can talk about spirituality. We'll do that when we start doing extended shows. That's fine. That's not what this show is about. But if you're just talking in the purely physical level right now, how bad things can get. You look at Mizzou, you look at these Marx videos being forwarded, you look at pedophiles on Salon. You've got to pick your battles. And at this point, there are a few fundamentals we need to agree on, and let's focus on that, because my God, my mic could be pulled off right now. Zuckerberg could come in and pull it. That's how dangerous this is. You're just sitting there. You're just fiddling with yourself. You're not even paying attention. All right, Paul Joseph Watson, so Jared can take a break. Stay tuned. And now for a message from Paco, the friendly homophobe.
That's me.
And can I top that water up for you, Mr. Jimenez?
No, thank you. I'm not comfortable with you touching my water.
Oh, I'm sorry. Has my service not been at a level that's satisfactory?
No, your service has been great.
I don't understand the problem.
I just see the reason I am very uncomfortable with you touching my food or around my children, even though you seem like a very nice man, is because you are not straight.
I just had to get that dance out for me because we have this next guest and we need to
How do
get
we
into
work that
professional mode. I'm glad we got the wiggles out.
Got it
You
out.
know him. Everyone knows him. You can follow him on Twitter at Prison Planet. Glad to have him with us. Paul Joseph Watson, thank you for being here, sir.
Hi, Stephen. Good to be back.
No, I'm glad to have you. You know, when I tweeted out that this program, Ben Shapiro was going to be on and you, and I think people thought you were both going to be on together, and there was like a civil war on Twitter. You and Ben are fine, right?
I mean, we're fine. He probably wouldn't agree to be on with me, to be honest. I mean, he was on Piers Morgan immediately after the Alex Jones thing, so.
Oh, okay.
I haven't attacked him at all, so I haven't got any problem with him. But
well, no, he agreed to come on with Milo. I think he's I know there have been some splits. Okay, let's start off with that. Doesn't it just kind of seem silly? You've been in this for a long time. How you've been pretty reasoned in your approach to Trump. I remember you talking on Rubin saying he wasn't even necessarily your guy, but you understood the value in what he did. So someone like you, do you get a little bit exasperated with the absolute destruction of conservatives over the Trump thing right now when we are looking down a double-barreled, hair-trigger social justice machine gun?
I think there's a level of hypocrisy there whereby, you have a lot of these conservatives, these more establishment types, and people who say they're, sticking to the Constitution. But, I mean, they sat back for 8 years of Bush. And he wasn't exactly aligned with the Constitution with a lot of things he did. And there was no revolt within the conservative movement really against Bush until very late on with the Tea Party, which actually sprang up, just after he'd left office. So, again, Trump's policies, do they even really matter at this point? Do people really believe that he's going to build the wall, that he's going to place this temporary ban on Muslims? I don't think that is what is actually driving Trump's support. It's just the fact that he's a figurehead.
Well, I get all that, but I'm saying should conservatives and Republicans be like, it was just startling the reaction, like, oh, hopefully Ben Shapiro and Paul Joseph Watson destroy each other. I'm going, hold on a second, we're gonna have probably like D.L. Hughley on next week. Save your anger for him.
I don't think it's really in our interest to go and destroy each other. We don't want to be feeding on each other like piranhas, like social justice warriors do, like actual classical liberals who stand up, like J.K. Rowling. You wrote an article about that. She said, my freedom of speech rests on the freedom to call Donald Trump a bigot, and he has to have his freedom to say what he likes. She's going to get attacked by the left wing, no doubt, for making those comments. So, yeah, we don't have to behave like extreme leftists. We can have differences of opinion and still remain cordial and not have this complete meltdown, which a lot of people seem to want because they're after this whole WWE spectacle where it's, a wrestling match or a boxing match or whatever.
Well, speaking of which,
there's room for disagreement.
Bernie voters, Bernie Sanders, this has been going on this week. A little bit of a violent bunch. Now, I've known this for a while because of the influence of big unions, and I went down to the Bernie rally, and I've listened to the rhetoric. But it seems like even the media now, they're kind of where I think the Republican Party is with Trump, and that they've resigned themselves to, okay, it's Hillary. And so now they have to acknowledge some of the glaring problems with Bernie voters, that they're violent inherently. Did that come as a surprise to you? Have you been reading up on that this week?
Well, how could they think that Bernie Sanders supporters weren't violent? Obviously, right at the start of this. But as he said, you could take that back to the Occupy Wall Street movement. Right. If you actually went out on the streets and asked those people how they intend to implement what they're calling for, if you go far enough down the rabbit trail, it's by force at gunpoint. This is what these people believe. They're violent radicals. If they were around in the 70s, they would have supported the Weathermen. So it comes as no great surprise. But of course, right from the beginning, several months back, this whole narrative was Trump is responsible for the violence at Trump rallies, despite the fact that all the video footage and evidence shows, and it has done in the following few weeks and months, that Bernie Sanders supporters were responsible for the unrest, punching Trump supporters in the face, spitting in their face, even punching police horses. We had numerous incidents.
Wait, they punched a horse? Was that on camera? Because that would get liberals mad.
Yeah, in New York.
And be hilarious.
How do you punch a horse? Where did they punch a horse?
She got so triggered, she just lashed out at this police horse. It was amazing.
Did it punch the horse in the face, or was it a body shot going like a kidney punch?
No, it was in the face.
How do you punch a horse in the face? It's like punching a wall. Oh,
exactly.
They'll horrible.
Punch anything. They'll punch anything that doesn't support Bernie Sanders. But we said from the start, these are the violent individuals. Why isn't the mainstream media talking about it?
Right.
So as soon as Trump secures the nomination, the media's, well, now we need to rally around Hillary to fend off this Bernie threat. And so they've been attacking Trump supporters, whether you support Trump or not. They've been violently attacking Trump supporters for months.
Right.
The very first time that anger, that violence is aimed at Democrats, Suddenly, the Democratic establishment is really concerned about it, and the mainstream media dares draw attention to it.
Right.
And it was in the Sacramento Bee today, but even in the very first paragraph of that article, they still described it as Trump-like violence.
Trump-like violence.
Yeah.
Punching a horse. She could have confused it for another feminist. Just thought it was like could have been a scuffle over a little Debbie. You never know. I want to give her the benefit of the doubt.
Benefit of the doubt is earned there.
Innocent until proven guilty. It is true, and that is one thing. Listen, I mean, anyone who watched the show knows I'm not a Trump guy. Like you said, I don't trust him. I saw a Supreme Court list. We've talked about that. I think it's pretty good. You know, my issue is, do I think he'll pull from that list? Well, if he does, great. So I'm trying to be fair, but I have no real reason to believe that what he's saying today will be the same tomorrow. And I think that's reasonable. That being said, I was the first to say, no. This is where everyone has to defend Donald Trump when it comes to violent protests like we saw in Chicago, when it comes to banning him from the UK. And so I think ultimately in being a bombastic dick, he's a great unifier in that sense for people who support free speech.
Well, exactly. He's a lightning rod, isn't he? I mean, the American political system hasn't seen a figure like him for decades, if ever. So that's where his support is coming from. It's not really about his policies if he actually plans to follow through on them. It never has been. But yeah, this media narrative ran for months. I mean, we had quite prominent rappers releasing videos and singles, kill Trump, take him out, fill him with hollow point bullets. Those songs were celebrated by the music media as, quote, viral protest songs.
Right.
People on Twitter, assassinate Trump, assassinate Trump. The guy running up on stage trying to attack him. We were saying all along, look, whoever you support, this is unacceptable. Why is the media propping this up? The same as they propped up the riots in Ferguson. As soon as it turns against them, now they're all panicking. Now Feinstein is out on CNN saying it's going to be like Chicago in '68. So, I mean, it's hilarious for me to see, for them to pretend that they've only just figured this out, that Bernie Sanders supporters are violent.
No, you're absolutely right. Cher was tweeting out about, getting threats from Bernie voters because she misses Hillary, and she was the one. Remember the Cher fans, not gay Jared?
They were the worst.
If you think like angry Muslims or angry hipsters or any faction is more aggressive than queer Cher fans, you do not know how angry social media can get. They came after us. I remember
for a meme. It was for a meme.
It was for a meme about her talking about the Islam thing. She made some stupid quote about
really
Islam.
Stupid tweet or something like that. We just kind of capitalized on it, and they were savage.
Remember that guy you sent us the Cher wall? He had
like a
shrine.
Cher
Wall. Sorry, Paul. It was like a whole wall. Like this, his rebuttal was like, "Why would you say this about the Queen?" And he sent us a picture of an entire shrine of Cher.
Oh, God.
So this is how they argue. Yeah, you're right, and I think the media has known this for a while with the Bernie situation. The Karl Marx video that we've released this week talks about just that, and we talked about it when we wrote about it when that story broke. At the end of the day, capitalism, free enterprise, at its absolute worst, can only function through voluntary transaction. It has to. Socialism, big government, can only function through coercion at gunpoint. It has to. So when they're saying the people's revolution, make the rich pay their fair share, what they're really saying is, if that guy doesn't do exactly what I want him to do, send in the guys with guns to put him in jail. And when you follow it down that logic trail, well, of course Occupy. Well, of course Black Lives Matter. Well, of course Bernie protests. Well, of course Woodstock. They've always been violent and disruptive. It's the rule, not the exception. So then it comes down to, do we believe that the leftist media is ignorant, or are they complicit and they're politically expedient? I think that's the question it comes down to, right?
Well, for me, they're complicit. I mean, Time magazine, in defense of looting. We saw that throughout the Ferguson uprising. You can take it back to the 70s. You had Larry Grathwohl, the FBI agent who was tasked with infiltrating the Weather Underground. He was asked, what were they talking about in these secret meetings? Well, they said, if the Americans resist, if the conservatives, if the pro-capitalists resist, what will you do? Well, we'll take them to re-education camps. But what will you do if they still don't conform? Well, we'll just kill them. And that extreme leftist violent fringe has been around since there's been a leftist movement in the United States. And, a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters are just hipsters, just trying to be well-meaning liberals. But there is that contingent, and it's the most militant, the most vocal, that does have this propensity to violence. And as you said, it goes back to, they believe that their ideas should be enforced by coercion, by the state, and ultimately by violence. So it's no surprise that we've seen that.
Well, it's so funny. We're talking about this, and it's in this Karl Marx, I'll send it to you, Karl Marx rebuttal video that goes up this week. There's this Karl Marx video that's gone around, and it's seen this huge resurgence. It was uploaded in 2014, right? Not gay, Jared? 2014.
I think so, yeah.
And it was actually your little brother who said, can you do a rebuttal to this? Because they're showing it
Everyone's
in schools.
talking about it.
And if you look at the comment section, it's nothing but Bernie people, right? And these are the same people who get furious at people like you and I and say, don't conflate communism and democratic socialism. But you're the one who's sending around the Karl Marx video talking about how he was it's the exact same people. At the end of the day, if you look at Karl Marx and what he believed, it's not far from Bernie Sanders at all. And of course, people can say whatever they want. It's a violent ideology. Karl Marx was it needs to be implemented by force and violence. So I'm astounded that this is a surprise to anybody. And you can't protect yourself out there in Europe.
No, and remember the Bernie Sanders campaign tried to clamp down on those T-shirts that they created with his face and, you know, Stalin, the hammer and sickle. They tried to clamp down on that. So they've obviously been concerned about the comparisons from the start. But again, it's this media response to what happened in Nevada. The Sacramento Bee article, their subheadline is, in Nevada, Trump-like anger boils over at state convention. And again, in the first paragraph, they say that Democrats don't want to admit it, but Trump isn't the only presidential candidate recklessly courting an angry mob.
Yeah.
So they can't get past the subheadline in the first paragraph without blaming what Bernie Sanders supporters did, not even at a Trump event, on Donald Trump.
Right.
So still they can't seem to let go of that narrative. But I mean, I asked the question on Twitter earlier today, could the Trump card, no pun intended, be, you know, Hillary picking Bernie as her VP?
I resent that. That pun was entirely intended. Don't you try and pull that.
But he's made positive noises quite recently, actually, over becoming her VP, and people were like, well, no, he would never compromise his beliefs to do that. I reckon he would. I reckon he would say, well, we can still have an influence, and then, of course, that would allow Hillary to get this mass of voters, the majority of whom said they would rather vote for Trump than Hillary. Whether they're actually going to do that, I don't really believe so, but that would allow Hillary to corral this huge mob of voters around her cause and help her defeat Trump. So I think that's still not out of the equation.
I think it is. I think it is just because Bernie doesn't carry any states, and he's a 102-year-old socialist Jewish man. So
He's got a lot of energy.
He was 101 last week. That's crazy.
101
last week, just last week.
101. Oh, by the way, well, we have to go to a break, so we'll bring him back. But you read about the Burlington College, right? Is going under because of his wife.
No, what's that?
Oh, okay. We'll have to talk about that when you come back from the break. I was raised in Montreal, so right north of the border from Burlington, Bernie Sanders territory. Oh, you're going to love this. You are going to love this, Paul. Paul Joseph Watson at Prison Planet. We'll be back with more. Stay tuned. Louder with Crowder. Guitar riff.
For breaking news on Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson. We take you now to the Cleveland Clinic, where the first successful penis transplant in the United States given to Thomas Manning has just been completed. His doctor is with him. Doctor, thank you for taking the time.
Yes, we're very glad to be here.
Now, you were running out of time, and at the last minute we're fortunate enough for none other than Shaquille O'Neal, who was tragically lost this week, to be a perfect match for Thomas in this operation, correct?
Yes, that's correct, and we're incredibly grateful to the O'Neal family, as the operation was a tremendous success. If you allow me a moment, I can remove the bandages here.
I don't see a problem with that on national television. Please do.
As you can see, the surgery was a tremendous success. The body accepted the transplant right away.
That's fascinating. It sounds like it couldn't have gone better. Have there been, I have to ask, any adverse reaction?
No, actually, which is what is so remarkable about this procedure. The body has accepted the transplant without any complications, and we've even begun to see some neurological function in the appendage.
That's fascinating. Now, have you seen any kind of adverse reactions?
No, which is what's No, which is quite common with these procedures, but we haven't seen anything significant at all, outside of some lower back pain, which is to be expected, and a somewhat surprising downward trend in free throw percentages. Outside of that, it's been a major success.
Well, as to be expected, we'll keep you abreast as the story unfolds. For Louder with Crowder, I'm Perry Matheson.
When it's time to party, we will party hard.
Glad to be back, having a party in studio. Glad with this next guest. I always get excited when I can reveal to them a story.
Kaboom!
Not a lot of
Drop
places
it.
covered this. We covered it at louderwithcrowder.com. You can follow all of his wonderful stories following him at Prison Planet. Paul Joseph Watson. Okay, so before the break, you didn't cheat and go Google this, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. You never know. Sometimes that'll happen. We had what was his name? That little gay guy who was debating, Harrison Greenbaum.
Oh yeah, he was like Googling
And
stuff.
he was like
He's
Googling
it's
stuff.
like,
Well, I think this is
I'm really sure.
incorrect.
Oh well, just Google. It just says top search.
Yes. Okay, so Burlington College is in Vermont. And we used to see the commercials when I was raised in Montreal. You know, come to Burlington College, a local college. Jane Sanders was the president of Burlington College. Or dean, president, anyway, in a position of authority where she was in charge of the finances. So she incurred a lot of debt. Long story short, Burlington is closing its doors. Burlington College, under the tutelage of Jane Sanders, they have no more money. It's run out. So when Bernie Sanders says free college for everybody, we have the blueprint. It's what his wife did at Burlington College, which is no more. How perfect is that?
Well, I mean, we see that in the United Kingdom, people campaigning all the time for free college tuition. Well, who's going to pay for it? They don't even make the connection that taxpayers are going to pay for it. And of course, that's not their immediate concern because they're not too into employment, so they don't really care about that. But, you know, it's like, you know, Missouri after the big protest, that's all melting down now. They're having trouble with funding. And, you know, it's because these places are not running anymore on a capitalist free market model, and people aren't as attracted to, you know, having their education there. I know a top employee, I just found out about this yesterday, a big university in Britain who was hauled into a meeting and given a dressing down and threatened with being fired simply for retweeting my posts. Like, he retweeted a Telegraph article about Caitlyn Jenner, laughing at the fact that she was a conservative and that had triggered a bunch of leftists. He was hauled in. He's gay, and he was basically told,
He's probably just retweeting you for the baby blues. He didn't know the crap storm he was walking into.
Yeah, but he was basically told, look, we've got a lot of Saudi Arabian students who are going to be offended by you tweeting these posts about ISIS throwing gays off buildings and stuff like that. So
also,
that is the most offensive part of that story.
Yeah, also, these same Saudi Arabian students are offended by your gayness. So let's do away with that as well.
So again, they're trying to straddle this impossible thing about, you know, we're vehemently pro-LGBT, and yet
probably
we don't
straddling
want
a
to
lot of
offend
things.
the precious Muslims.
Yes.
And now we've got the Pope, if we can move on to that, coming out and basically saying that ISIS is just like Jesus. This is his quote. You're not going to believe this. It is true that the idea of conquest is inherent in the soul of Islam. However, it's also possible to interpret the objective in Matthew's gospel, where Jesus sends his disciples to all nations in terms of the same idea of conquest. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't remember reading in the Bible, you know, Jesus beheading people, forcing them into sex slavery, forcing them to pay a tax if they don't convert to Christianity. I don't recall reading that.
That was a great chapter. I can't believe you missed that.
I believe it's in there somewhere near the back. No, and that's the perfect thing. Even, you know, Christine Hoff Sommers, when I was there at the triggering event, you know, she came on this show and she said she wished I would soften up on Islam and on Muslims. I said, I don't attack Muslims. I don't. I go after Muhammad. Muhammad was a terrorist, and no one, and we've invited people on the show, have given me a convincing enough case otherwise. And so I think if the fact that the Pope is going to Jesus as an example, without a sense of irony. I mean, the only reason he should be going to Jesus to contrast Jesus with Islam would be contrasting how much more peaceful and how much more loving Christ was compared to a serial murdering pedophile like Muhammad. I mean, I'm not Catholic. We have a lot of Catholic listeners on the show, and we do have a lot of good Catholic listeners We have a lot of Catholic listeners who don't like this Pope either. They wish he would stay to issues of spirituality. But this almost seems like it's in the real house of spirituality. Do they believe he's infallible on this? Are you Catholic? You're not Catholic, are you?
No, but I mean, he's comparing ISIS with Jesus.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, what the hell is going? Then, you know, Italy is now begging its citizens to have babies, of course, because in the West, nobody's having babies. It's demographic suicide, like Russia. So the Pope came out and said the answer to that is to bring in more Muslim migrants who will then interbreed with Europeans, which is precisely a mirror image in the rhetoric of this top imam, Sheikh Mohammed Ayed, who I've featured in my videos a few times, who got up at a Jerusalem mosque and basically said, this whole migrant crisis is about conquest. Europeans, their fertility is declining. We're going to go over there and conquer them by having children with them. Now the Pope comes out and says basically the same thing as this radical Islamist preacher. So, I mean, what the hell is going on as Italy begs its population to have children? It's absolutely astounding.
Well, it is astounding, but at the end of the day, whether it's Italians breeding or Islamic migrants breeding, either way, you're getting a hairy baby.
This is true.
That bridges the racial divide. We are the world. Hold hands. Hairy Italians and Muslims. Okay, I want to keep on that path, but you haven't heard this story. Another story. I love it when I get to do this. Blake Lively, the outrage, front page HuffPo. You know what? And Jared, you can bring this image up. We can give you a little bit of eye candy there, Paul. She Instagrammed LA face with an Oakland booty. See, because she has a quite plump booty.
All right, I see it.
So everyone's furious. Of course, they're saying it's racist. I mean, there's not much more to it than that, but Oakland booty is apparently racist. Cat B tweeted, another day, another rich white woman using WOC's body as a punchline and commodity, as if Blake Lively wasn't the worst already. I want to follow Blake Lively just to unfollow her after this Oakland business. So much privilege, even GOOP feels uncomfortable. Just in case you weren't familiar with the term, Oakland booty, Paul, is because black people tend to have larger posteriors than white people, and Oakland is largely populated by black people. So that was the reason for the comment.
So they're saying that it's racist appropriation because she's got a large ass.
Yes. The most beautiful woman rated most beautiful person in America with a large ass. They're mad because she gave credit to black people, saying, "Hey, I don't know where this lines up on the fat shame scale, body pride."
My God, Walton's got it though.
The guy who got assaulted for having dreadlocks and was culturally appropriating black people, the little weakling hipster guy, I think it even tops that.
Yes.
But I mean, it ties into this whole Whiteness History Month. Have you seen this coming out?
No, we have to go. We have to go. Okay. Well, you know what? Maybe we'll do a web extended. I haven't made up my mind yet. Paul Joseph Watson at Prison Planet. Stay tuned. Louder with Crowder. You hold on, sir.
Greetings, America. Hopper here, continuing my campaign and delivering on my promises of no more pandering, demagoguery, or division in a country that has experienced it long enough. I want to answer some questions that I have received in recent weeks announcing my campaign. Most notably has been a consistent question regarding my stance on cheese. Now, many of you are confused as to whether I am using the word cheeses in meaning the plural of all the delicious cheese, or referring to Cheez-Its, the snacks covered in salt that Americans have come to love. My answer depends on where you line up. I ran a Twitter poll, and half of you prefer cheeses or Cheez-Its. And I can be a president for all dog kind and humankind, both the lovers of cheeses and Cheez-Its. So long as we hate the squirrels, which will be my next PSA, I'm going to expand on that platform. Tweet your support with hashtag #FeelTheHopper.
truly disturbed or is he just a turd? Nobody knows. It's upstairs Tourette's guy.
Sweetheart, I'm home.
Oh my gosh, okay, I had the most amazing day, and I have something really important to tell you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
I think so.
Do you need to sit down?
Well, sweetheart, what is it?
It worked.
Really?
I'm pregnant.
Oh my God. This is the most incredible thing.
Sucking horse shit out the ass with a in a straw.
Oh my God.
No, it's okay. He'll calm down. I feel like I'm in a dream. This is the most wonderful.
Get on a stick with a cock bleeding out its ass. A Portuguese water monkey, motherfucker.
Do you think we should?
No, if you
With
just, it's best.
Sticks.
No, it's best to ignore it, sweetheart.
Ignore me, sucking motherfucking bitch.
Yeah, I better go up there.
Is he truly disturbed or is he just a turd? Nobody knows. It's upstairs Tourette's guy.
Mother.
Glad to be back. Third hour, Louder with Crowder. Producing with me in studio, as always, is Not Gay Jared, who is not gay. I fulfill my legal obligations, draw your own conclusions. For those watching the live stream, this is our first ever Louder with Crowder shirt. People can't see it yet. People can't fully see it yet. Jared, you can let me know when it's on camera. You got the Che Guevara. So here we go. If people want to buy this shirt, it's going to be available. It's about socialism in the Louder with Crowder store pretty soon. I don't know when, honestly. I just really wanted this shirt. I don't know why people get so... We had some people here who were mad about it when I wore it in public, that socialism is for figs. And I don't know why people got so mad about figs.
Oh, they're very sensitive fruit.
Which is so funny why someone would take up the mantle of figs, because who really knows anything about figs? You get them in a Newton.
Some of the things. Some of their hashtags to jump in on.
That's the only time you see a fig is in a Newton. That's it.
And then they dry your mouth out.
All right, tweet us. If you want to get your hands on some merch here relatively soon, some big things coming for Louder with Crowder. People have been wanting us to do more programming, more content. We'll see. We'll see if you've earned it. But I want to talk about something here. While we were talking about atheists and Christians, and Paul Joseph Watson came on, and we all have disagreements. J.K. Rowling was in the news this week. And J.K. Rowling was in the news because she actually defended Donald Trump's freedom of speech, even though she is a known leftist. And in the UK, which means she's a real leftist. You know, most leftists there freedom of speech doesn't exist outside of the United States. That's something a lot of people don't understand. Freedom of speech is a uniquely American ideal. She said, now, I find almost everything that Mr. Trump says objectionable. I consider him offensive and bigoted. But he has my full support to come to my country and be offensive and bigoted there. His freedom to speak protects my freedom to call him a bigot.
I love that quote.
Rowling added Trump's freedom of speech guarantees her own and warned that unless we take that absolute position without caveats or apologies, we have set foot upon a road with only one destination. I'm guessing it's bad.
It's not good.
I think that's the implication, but she gave herself some weasel room out, like the muggle that she is. Here's the thing. She's correct. And she's incorrect about him being bigoted. Here's one thing about Donald Trump. The things that I don't like about Donald Trump, I don't think he's a racist at all. I don't really think Donald Trump is a sexist. I don't think he respects his vows. But that doesn't mean that he hates women. That doesn't mean that he's sexist. Wanting to sleep with a lot of women means you're not loyal to your wife. You cheat on your wife, that's bad. It doesn't mean you're sexist. That's one thing I never understood, as though a man somehow inherently is disrespecting a woman by engaging in intimate relations with her.
Yes.
You don't respect her. Well, no, I think you should treat a woman well, and I think respect is important. But sexism, racism, these things need to be proven. I have not seen any evidence that Donald Trump is racist. What, because he wants to build a wall? Well, listen, if you're conservative out there, that's one thing that bothers me about conservatives and the never Trump thing, which is why I can never go there. You claim that Donald Trump took his immigration policy from real conservatives. Then don't come out and say he's racist or bigoted. You have to pick one or the other. I don't think Donald Trump will follow through on the wall, even as Paul Joseph Watson just implied. I don't think he can. If you just do the math, want to accuse Bernie people of not doing math, you do the math on how many people you'd have to deport on a regular basis, how much money that wall would cost, how you could. It's not feasible. It's not doable. But that doesn't mean that it's racist to have borders. And I'm not defending Donald Trump. I don't know what his policy is. I have no idea. But I get irked when I see any conservatives using the leftist card and say he's racist. I don't think Donald Trump is racist at all. I have no evidence that Donald Trump is racist. I have no evidence that he's sexist. I think he's a serial philandering, dishonest politician. He's never held office. Doesn't matter. He buys and sells politicians. That's my problem with him. But if you start saying, if you start throwing around racism and sexism and bigotry or xenophobia, by the time you mention xenophobia, I'm off. I can't take your side. Anyone who uses the word xenophobia, that is the blanket statement, the trump card, xenophobia, this conversation is over. No, I'm done. So the reason, and this is where we're in a tight spot, right, when we talk about this, because you have people who either love Donald Trump or you have liberals who hate him and accuse him of racism, sexism. And you have a lot of people in the Never Trump crowd who use those same, and I can't get on board with that. The things that I don't like about him, we've talked about the policies, we've talked about his positions, we've talked about the character issues. But I just can't put myself on put on the team jersey of people who are going to use the tactics of the left, saying that he's a racist.
Yeah, I have some friends who are not Trump fans at all, and they tweet me or text me pretty often, and I go along with them, but I know at the core we don't dislike him for the same reasons, even though they say we do. They don't really know or understand the details, the depth of, why we have legitimate concerns. So. So it was kind of an interesting conversation to have, though. It
is. It's important. It puts people in a tough spot when the people who could be making valid arguments against Trump. And here's another thing, too. We've talked about it. Listen, when it was a primary, that's the role of the primary.